Hello, class. This is Mr. Washington. This is for our U.S. government class. We're going to start the executive branch, and everything's going to be on a PowerPoint, so you can look up the PowerPoint, not look it up. I'll post it for you guys so that you have notes. But it's Article 2, which is the executive branch, which as we know is the presidency, right? We closed out the unit on the legislative branch. So the slides that you would take notes on, I'll make sure I post this, are 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 12, 15, 16, 17, 21, 22, 23, 24, 26, and 27. All right, and I'm going to go through those slides right now. All right, again, your notes should be titled the executive branch, which is the presidency. First thing we're looking at is qualifications for the presidency, right? President has to at least be 35 years of age, a natural born citizen, and has to have lived in the United States for the last 14 years consecutively. All right, so that's qualifications, 35. Natural born citizen, lived in the United States for 35 years, for 14 years consecutively. Terms in office. The president and VP are elected to 2 4-year terms, right? Now, a president can be in office for 10 years, right? So you do have the 2 terms, which is at 4 years apiece, so that's 8 years. But let's say like a vice president has to take over for the president. They get those years, which could be 2 years, and then their own 2 terms after that. So the longest somebody could actually be president is 10 years, all right? But normally it's a total of 2 terms, which adds up to 8 years, but it can be up to 10. Terms in office, they get 2 4-year terms. This goes with the 22nd Amendment, which limits the terms that a president can be in office. If you remember FDR, running joke is that if Franklin Delano Roosevelt was still alive, he'd still be president because he kept being able to win. But due to the 22nd Amendment, they had to limit. They decided to set a limit. Okay, so that's slide 4. Slide 5, we're not doing. Looking at compensation, we don't need to know that. But at slide 6, right, we have to look at the Succession Act of the president. So if something was to happen to the president, who becomes the president, who replaces the president? And our founding fathers made sure that this was a multiple-step process. So if anything catastrophic was to happen, that we have different people that could slide into that space. So if the president can no longer be president, the vice president, that's the first person. After that's the Speaker of the House. Third is President Pro Tem. Fourth is Cabinet Secretaries in order, Secretary of State, Treasury, Defense. All right, so again, it's Vice President, Speaker of the House, President Pro Tem, Cabinet Secretaries. It starts off as Secretary of the State, Treasury, and Defense. All right, and that's slide 6. And then we go to slide 7. So this does go in order a little bit. All right, so for slide 7, we're looking at the 25th Amendment. All right, this took place in 1967. If the president can't complete, that's my son. If the president can't complete his term in office, the vice president becomes the president. If the vice president office is vacant, the president appoints one with a new Senate approval. All right, so the Senate would come in. All right. Slide 8. Like when Richard Nixon left the office, right? So Nixon was elected in 1968 and again in 1972. First Vice President Spiro Agnew resigned because of tax evasion. Nixon appointed Gerald Ford as vice president. Nixon was forced to resign because of Watergate. You can look that up. But basically what Nixon got caught doing was tampering in elections, right? That's what he got caught doing. But it's called the Watergate scandal. Ford becomes the vice president. Ford appoints Nelson Rockefeller as the vice president. So that basically is an example of the 25th Amendment. All right, and that's slide 8. And we don't go to slide 9. We go to slide 12. So I'm just going to, boom, slide 12. All right, so it's the rise of political parties, right? This, our founding father, George Washington, said that we shouldn't have parties, that parties should not happen, that it was going to divide the country. And he was, I guess more when we look at life now, he is probably correct. All right. But political parties, they were always kind of there, but then they really got ingrained in our society quite early on, but it wasn't at the first presidency. No parties were in the Constitution, but you do have Federalists such as John Adams and Thomas Jefferson, who was a Republican. Adams won the presidency with the most electoral votes, and then Jefferson became his vice president. This would not work today. Could you imagine if Hillary Clinton was Trump's vice president? Just don't see that being as a working relationship, but that's the way it used to be, was that even if they had two different political ideologies, they would come together, and the person who got second became the vice president. Not going to work because of the different political ideologies that we have now. It's just, they had to get rid of it. There's a whole thing here about Thomas Jefferson and Burr, which is one of my favorite stories. Burr and Hamilton duking it out in the streets. I often, when I lecture about this in class, I talk about how, people talk about being gangster, and, didn't get more gangster than Aaron Burr. He literally shot Hamilton in the streets, right? Like, those were real political adversaries that went at it. And, but I'm not going to get into that for note-taking and stuff. Where am I going to go next? Slide 16. All right, changes in presidential election. Candidates select running mates. All right, electors pledge to parties, not candidates. They vote for a party. The 12th Amendment added electors to designate their vote as president or vice president. We will get into the electoral process in this unit. Doing it online, I have to figure it out. Of course, you know me, I have assignments, but try to make it one that sticks with you, since we're not there to work on it together. All right, so that's slide 16, and then we go straight to slide 17. The Electoral College. And like I said, we're going to have to spend a lesson on this, or try to find some good material to help make it stick. Each state will have electors to the number of senators and representatives, right? So it's going to equal out to 535. Electors may not hold any other office. Electors will be appointed by state legislature. Electors will determine the president and vice president. When we do the electoral process, you'll see that, like, the magic number that you want to hit is 270, right? Because that's more than half of the 230 of the 535, right? Because remember, it's 435 for the House of Representatives plus the Senate. That's 535. So the magic number for electorals is like 270, I believe. And they're really competing when they're running for office. They're really competing for the electoral votes. And there's certain states that you want to win, like California. You're going to get a heck of a lot, right? So you'd be like, oh yeah, I won Rhode Island. Great, smallest state. You win California, that's really winning something because of the number of electoral votes that you'll get from California. I think it's like almost 50. So that's big points adding up to that 270 mark. The smaller states don't help. And due to this, we've had times when the majority vote doesn't win because the electoral vote has won. And depending on which side of the fence you're on, when it comes to your politics, kind of determines your happiness with how that worked. All right, so that's slide 17. Going to move on to slide 21. Sorry about that. Presidential powers. All right, so this is what the president powers that the president has. Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, in charge of the military. Though, of course, even if they have temporary power over the military to just do something because something has to be done in urgency, they do have to, the president does have to talk to Congress when it comes to use of military. Grant reprieves and pardons for federal offenses, call special sessions of Congress, receive ambassadors, execute laws, appoint officials to lesser offices. All right, and that's slide 21. Slide 22, power shared with the Senate, make treaties, appoint ambassadors, judges, and high officials. Slide after that, power shared with Congress, approve legislation, right, passing of bills. Then we go on to those two. Oh, well, we'll take a look at 27. Removal of the president. Okay, so president and vice president may be removed from office upon conviction of impeachment, right, which comes from Congress, and then the Senate. And we've kind of gone over that a little bit this year. We did because there was an impeachment trial. So this has been a heck of a year for the U.S. government in many different ways. All right, guys, the PowerPoint will be posted. The slides that you'll have to record on will be posted as well. I hope this video helps. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Enjoy your break, but make sure that you get caught up on your notes when it comes to the executive branch. Thank you.